Welcome to Hardly, where books turn into 3 stories, refreshing your knowledge in minutes. Today, we study together Liam Byrne's The Inequality of Wealth, Why It Matters and How to Fix It, in which we probe into how the concentration of wealth in the hands of a few threatens democracy, exacerbates social division, and demands urgent reform. The Right Honourable Liam Byrne MP chairs the Global Parliamentary Network on the World Bank and International Monetary Fund and sits on the House of Commons Foreign Affairs Select Committee. Don't go away. Hardly, the editor, will be right back with the story. Today, I'll share 3 stories from different corners of the world that reveal the consequences of wealth concentration. We'll hear about a mogul's play for power in London, a powerful Indian dynasty, and a tragic community in America's Rust Belt. Each story sheds light on how extreme wealth can shape or even break our societies. Story 1. The Power Play of Mohammed Amersi. In London, a figure emerged who epitomizes the intersection of wealth and political influence, Mohammed Amersi. His story is one that unfolds not in the grand halls of Parliament, but in the quieter yet equally potent spaces of political fundraising and influence peddling. Amersi, a wealthy businessman, sought to cement his status by becoming a major donor to a prominent political party. His donations weren't merely acts of generosity, they were investments in power, a practice he candidly termed access capitalism. Amersi's ambition wasn't just to mingle with the elite. He aimed for a seat at the table where decisions are made. He was keen on leading a new political group that would enhance his influence in regions where he had business interests. However, his past, a history entangled with one of Europe's biggest corruption scandals, cast a long shadow. Despite his attempts to sue those who exposed him, the legal battles only highlighted the lengths to which wealth can go to shield itself from scrutiny. One telling moment came when Amersi openly boasted to the press, "You get access, you get invitations, you get privileged relationships if you are part of the setup, and where you are financially making a contribution to be a part of that setup." This chilling confession underscores a dangerous truth. When wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, it often buys not just luxury, but influence, undermining the very foundations of democracy. Story 2. The Ambanis of India. A towering symbol of wealth. Thousands of miles away in Mumbai, the Ambani family represents another facet of wealth concentration. Mukesh Ambani, one of the richest men in the world, resides in what is arguably the most opulent private home on the planet, Antilia. This 27-story skyscraper, costing over $1 billion, is a vertical palace equipped with everything from a snow room to 6 floors of parking. The Ambani mansion is more than just a display of wealth. It's a fortress that symbolizes the growing divide between India's super-rich and its vast poor population. As millions of Indians struggle with basic needs, Antilia stands as a towering reminder of the inequalities that plague the nation. What's more unsettling is how this wealth isolates the Ambanis from the very country they inhabit. Their need for such an extravagant home reflects not just a desire for luxury, but a retreat from the chaotic, impoverished world outside. An observer noted, "The Ambani house is the sort of ultimate example where you just have everything inside the skyscraper, a sort of private affluence in public squalor." The Ambanis' lifestyle is a stark illustration of how extreme wealth can create physical and social barriers, isolating the elite and exacerbating social tensions. Story 3. The Hollowing Out of Youngstown, Ohio. Back in the United States, in the heart of America's Rust Belt, lies Youngstown, Ohio, a once thriving industrial town now haunted by the ghosts of its prosperous past. The city's story is not about an individual's wealth, but the systemic effects of wealth concentration and economic decline. As industries moved offshore in search of cheaper labor, Youngstown's steel mills, which once employed tens of thousands, were shuttered. The wealth generated by these industries flowed upwards, leaving the local community devastated. The consequences of this exodus are palpable. Abandoned homes line the streets, and the local economy has collapsed. With the departure of wealth, social services crumbled, crime rates soared, and despair set in. Those who could afford to leave did, further hollowing out the community. What remains is a stark portrait of how wealth, when concentrated and extracted from communities, can leave behind a wasteland. A local activist lamented, "When the mills closed, they didn't just take away jobs, they took away our future." This story of Youngstown is not just about economic decline, but about the destruction of community and the erosion of hope, an all too common result of wealth concentration. These stories reveal the multifaceted dangers of wealth concentration. In London, we see how money can corrupt politics and weaken democracy. In Mumbai, it shows how extreme wealth can isolate and disconnect the elite from the rest of society. In Youngstown, it highlights the devastating impact on communities when wealth is siphoned away. The concentration of wealth in the hands of a few doesn't just create inequality, it erodes the foundations of our society. It breeds corruption, deepens social divisions, and destroys communities. If left unchecked, this trend could lead us down a path where democracy is nothing more than a facade, and our societies become increasingly fragmented. As the editor of Hardly, I believe that by understanding these stories, we can begin to reimagine a future where wealth is more equitably distributed, ensuring a society that is fairer, more cohesive, and resilient against the forces that threaten to divide us. In the journey through these stories, we've seen how the concentration of wealth in a few hands can unravel the very fabric of our societies. To drive this point home, let's revisit one more striking example from the book: the story of a British aristocrat who leveraged his ancestral wealth not just to sustain his lifestyle, but to influence local politics and maintain his grip on power. This individual, who shall remain unnamed, inherited vast estates across the UK. With his wealth, he subtly manipulated local elections by funding candidates who would protect his interests, ensuring that land reforms threatening his holdings were never enacted. His wealth didn't just afford him luxury, it allowed him to control the rules of the game, tilting democracy in his favor. This behavior, while legal, reveals the corrosive effects of wealth concentration on democracy. As one observer noted, "He who controls the purse strings controls the ballot." These tales remind us that when wealth accumulates in the hands of a few, it doesn't just create inequality, it undermines the principles of fairness and justice that should be the bedrock of our societies. The key takeaway is clear. Unchecked wealth concentration endangers democracy, deepens social rifts, and threatens the cohesion of our communities. As the editor of Hardly, by learning from these examples, we can work towards envisioning a future where wealth is not just concentrated, but shared more broadly, fostering a society that is both just and resilient.